a man steps off a train into a city still scarred by war. Vienna is divided between four occupying powers. Buildings lie in ruins. The black market thrives in the shadows. He arrives expecting to reunite with an old friend, only to discover that friend has just been buried. Yet before long, whispers begin circulating through the bombed-out streets. 3 men carried the body, but witnesses insist there was a mysterious third man. That simple question becomes the beginning of one of the greatest mysteries in cinema history. Released in 1949, The Third Man was directed by Carol Reed, written by Graham Greene, and starred Joseph Cotten, Alida Valli, Trevor Howard, and Orson Welles. Famous for its tilted camera angles, haunting zither music, and unforgettable chase through Vienna's sewers, it transformed post-war Europe into one of cinema's most atmospheric settings. More than 70 years later, it remains a masterpiece of suspense, visual storytelling, and moral ambiguity. 20 facts counting down. Fact 20. Graham Greene wrote the story before writing the screenplay. Unlike most films, The Third Man did not begin as a finished screenplay. Producer Alexander Korda asked novelist Graham Greene to create an original thriller set in occupied Vienna, but Greene insisted he first needed to understand the story as prose. He wrote a complete novella not for publication, but as a detailed blueprint for the film. That approach allowed him to develop Harry Lime, Holly Martins, and Anna Schmidt as fully realized characters before adapting their story for the screen. One of the film's earliest scenes captures this perfectly. Holly Martins arrives at Harry Lime's funeral, confused by the mourners and suspicious of everyone's conflicting stories. The mystery unfolds naturally because Greene already knew every secret behind the plot. The unpublished novella later became famous in its own right, offering fans a fascinating glimpse into how one of cinema's greatest thrillers evolved from page to screen. Fact 19. Post-war Vienna became the film's greatest character. Carol Reed refused to recreate Vienna on British sound stages if the real city could still tell the story itself. In 1948, cast and crew travelled to the Austrian capital, where bombed buildings, shattered streets, and abandoned lots still bore the scars of the Second World War. The city had been divided into American, British, French, and Soviet occupation zones, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty that perfectly suited Graham Greene's thriller. Holly Martins wanders through narrow alleys lined with damaged buildings, crosses deserted squares, and questions strangers beneath crumbling facades. Every location feels authentic because it was. Rather than hiding the destruction, Reed embraced it, allowing broken staircases, cracked walls, and piles of rubble to become visual reminders of a society struggling to rebuild itself. The ruined city constantly reinforces the film's themes of moral collapse and divided loyalties. Vienna is never merely a backdrop. It quietly shapes every decision the characters make. Fact 18. The unforgettable zither score almost never happened. One of the most recognizable soundtracks in film history came from a musician who had never composed for movies before. While visiting Vienna, Carol Reed heard local performer Anton Karas playing the zither in a small wine tavern. Fascinated by the unusual instrument, Reed immediately believed its bright yet melancholy sound perfectly captured the city's contradictory mood. Instead of commissioning a traditional orchestral score, he invited Karas to perform for the entire film. The result surprised everyone. As Holly Martins strolls through Vienna's winding streets, investigating Harry Lime's mysterious death, the playful zither melody creates an uneasy contrast with the dark events unfolding on screen. Rather than telling audiences how to feel, the music adds irony and unpredictability. Karas's theme became an international sensation, topping music charts in several countries and selling millions of records. A modest street musician unexpectedly created one of cinema's most famous musical signatures. Fact 17. Orson Welles appears surprisingly late but dominates the entire film. Harry Lime is discussed constantly long before audiences ever see him. Witnesses mention his generosity, his charm, and the suspicious circumstances surrounding his apparent death. Graham Greene carefully builds anticipation until one of cinema's greatest entrances finally arrives. Holly Martins hears a cat meowing in a dark Viennese street. A nearby apartment window suddenly lights up, revealing Harry Lime standing calmly in a doorway, smiling as though nothing has happened. Orson Welles barely moves. He simply grins into the light before disappearing back into the darkness. The reveal lasts only seconds, yet it has become one of the most celebrated introductions in film history. Welles understood the power of understatement. Rather than making Lime immediately threatening, he appears relaxed, amused, and almost delighted to see his old friend. That charming first impression makes everything audiences later discover about the character even more disturbing. Fact 16. Carol Reed filled the film with daring tilted camera angles. Few classic films are as visually distinctive as The Third Man. Throughout the story, Carol Reed repeatedly tilts the camera so buildings lean awkwardly, streets seem unbalanced, and characters appear trapped inside distorted frames. These Dutch angles were not simply stylistic flourishes. Reed used them to reflect Holly Martins's growing confusion as every new clue contradicts the last. One striking scene shows Martins climbing a staircase while the walls seem to lean against him, making the city itself feel unstable. The unusual compositions constantly remind viewers that nothing in post-war Vienna is quite as it appears. Truth has become difficult to recognize. Loyalties shift without warning. Even familiar streets seem strangely unfamiliar. Combined with dramatic shadows and wet cobblestones, the tilted photography gives the entire film a dreamlike quality. It became one of the defining visual trademarks of film noir and continues influencing suspense filmmakers today. Fact 15. The famous Ferris wheel speech was largely Orson Welles' own creation. One of the film's most memorable scenes takes place high above Vienna, inside the city's giant Ferris wheel, the Wiener Riesenrad. Holly Martins finally confronts Harry Lime about his role in the black market penicillin racket that has left innocent children permanently injured or dead. Lime looks calmly down at the tiny people walking far below and casually asks whether anyone would really miss one of those little dots if it stopped moving forever. During the conversation, Harry also delivers the famous line comparing peaceful Switzerland with violent Renaissance Italy, claiming that Italy produced Michelangelo while Switzerland produced only the cuckoo clock. Although Graham Greene wrote most of the dialogue, Orson Welles is widely credited with contributing or refining parts of the speech, particularly the colourful historical comparison. Whether entirely accurate or not, the line became inseparable from the character. Standing inside the slowly turning Ferris wheel, smiling while justifying terrible crimes, Welles transformed Harry Lime into one of cinema's most fascinating villains. Fact 14. Joseph Cotten played an unlikely detective completely out of his depth. Unlike the hard-boiled private investigators common in film noir, Holly Martins is an American writer of inexpensive Western novels with almost no experience solving real crimes. That inexperience becomes one of the film's greatest strengths. Joseph Cotten portrays Martins as determined but frequently overwhelmed by the dangerous world surrounding him. Early in the investigation, Holly interviews witnesses who constantly contradict one another, leaving him increasingly frustrated. Later, he chases suspects through unfamiliar streets, only to discover he understands Vienna even less than he thought. Cotten avoids making Martins into an action hero. Instead, he He reacts with confusion, disbelief, and occasional flashes of courage that feel entirely human. His ordinary nature allows audiences to uncover the mystery alongside him. Every revelation comes as a surprise because Martins is learning the truth at exactly the same pace as the viewer. Fact 13. The sewer chase became one of cinema's greatest finales. The climax of The Third Man unfolds beneath Vienna in the city's vast underground sewer system. Carol Reed secured permission to film inside sections of the real 19th century tunnels, although some interiors were recreated at Shepperton Studios for safety and lighting control. As police officers close in, Harry Lime races through echoing brick passages, splashing through shallow water while desperately searching for an escape. The maze of tunnels transforms into a giant underground labyrinth where every turn could lead either to freedom or capture. One unforgettable image shows Lime reaching desperately through a metal street grate, his fingers stretching toward the daylight just beyond his grasp. The sequence combines suspense, striking photography, and haunting sound design to create one of the most influential chases in film history. Decades later, filmmakers still study its pacing and visual storytelling as a masterclass in building tension without relying on elaborate special effects. Fact 12. Robert Kraska's photography won an Academy Award for its remarkable atmosphere. Black and white cinematography rarely feels as expressive as it does in The Third Man. Cinematographer Robert Kraska used dramatic contrasts between light and shadow to transform post-war Vienna into a city filled with mystery. Streetlights cast long reflections across rain-soaked cobblestones. Apartment windows create isolated pools of light in otherwise dark streets, and deep shadows constantly conceal important details from both Holly Martins and the audience. One especially memorable shot follows Martins walking through a deserted square at night, his elongated shadow stretching across the pavement before disappearing into darkness. Kraska's careful lighting heightened suspense while emphasizing the film's moral uncertainty. There are few clear divisions between good and evil. Almost every character operates somewhere within the shadows. His extraordinary work earned the Academy Award for Best Black and White Cinematography and remains one of the defining visual achievements of classic film noir. Fact 11. Anna Schmidt became the story's emotional conscience despite hiding painful secrets. Alida Valli gives one of the film's most understated performances as Anna Schmidt, the actress who loved Harry Lime despite suspecting far more about him than she admits. Unlike Holly Martins, Anna never believes the world is divided neatly into heroes and villains. She understands Harry's flaws, yet her loyalty never wavers. One moving scene shows Holly offering Anna the chance to escape Vienna with forged papers. She quietly refuses, choosing uncertainty over betraying the memory of the man she loves. Valli avoids melodrama entirely. Her restrained expressions and calm voice conceal enormous grief beneath the surface. Throughout the film, Anna represents the moral complexity at the heart of The Third Man. She cannot defend Harry's crimes, but she cannot stop loving him either. That impossible conflict gives the story an emotional depth that extends far beyond its murder mystery. Fact 10. The final shot became one of the greatest endings ever filmed. Few films end with such confidence. After Harry Lime's second funeral, Holly Martins waits beside a tree-lined road, hoping Anna will finally accept his affection. The camera remains still as she slowly walks toward him beneath rows of bare trees. For nearly a minute, no one speaks. Martins waits expectantly. Anna never slows down. She passes him without a glance and continues walking into the distance, leaving him standing completely alone. Carol Reed resisted studio suggestions to end the story with a romantic embrace, insisting the truth of Anna's character demanded something harsher. That decision transformed a good ending into a legendary one. The long, uninterrupted take allows disappointment to unfold in real time, reminding audiences that not every sacrifice is rewarded and not every act of courage earns love in return. Fact 9. Real black market crimes inspired Harry Lime's shocking business. Harry Lime's criminal enterprise was not invented purely for dramatic effect. In the years immediately following the Second World War, shortages of medicine created thriving black markets across occupied Europe. Criminals stole valuable supplies, diluted life-saving drugs, and sold counterfeit medicines to desperate hospitals. Graham Greene learned about these real crimes while researching Vienna and built Harry's penicillin racket around them. The horror becomes painfully clear when Major Calloway explains that diluted penicillin left children permanently disabled or dead. Harry never robs banks or commits glamorous crimes. He profits from human suffering on an industrial scale. That chilling realism makes him far more disturbing than a conventional gangster. Behind his wit and charm lies a businessman willing to sacrifice countless innocent lives for money. Fact 8. Trevor Howard grounded the mystery with quiet authority. As Major Calloway, Trevor Howard avoids the stereotype of the aggressive police inspector. Instead, he plays the British officer with patience, intelligence, and dry humour. At first, Holly Martins dismisses Calloway's accusations against Harry as jealousy or misunderstanding. Gradually, however, the officer reveals carefully documented evidence exposing Lime's crimes. One memorable sequence shows Calloway guiding Holly through a children's hospital where victims of the counterfeit penicillin lie recovering. The quiet visit accomplishes more than any dramatic speech could. Howard's restrained performance steadily shifts both Holly's and the audience's understanding of the mystery. By the film's conclusion, Calloway emerges not as an obstacle to the hero, but as one of the story's few consistently honest characters. His calm professionalism provides a crucial moral anchor amid the surrounding deception. Fact 7. Orson Welles filmed surprisingly little, despite becoming the film's defining face. Although Harry Lime dominates discussions of the third man, Orson Welles appears on screen for only around 10 minutes. His limited screen time was partly the result of scheduling conflicts, forcing Carol Reed to maximize every appearance. Rather than seeing Lime constantly, audiences spend much of the film imagining him through other characters' stories. By the time Welles finally steps into the light beneath that apartment doorway, anticipation has reached its peak. Every subsequent scene carries enormous weight because viewers know his appearances are rare. Welles's charisma ensures those few minutes overshadow performances lasting 10 times longer. It remains one of cinema's greatest demonstrations that memorable characters are defined not by screen time, but by impact. Fact 6. The film redefined British cinema around the world. Before The Third Man, British films often struggled to achieve the same international prestige as major Hollywood productions. Carol Reed's masterpiece changed that perception almost overnight. Critics praised its sophisticated storytelling, unforgettable atmosphere, and technical brilliance. The film won the Grand Prix at the 1949 Cannes Film Festival before earning an Academy Award for Robert Kraska's cinematography. International audiences embraced its distinctly European setting and morally ambiguous characters, proving that intelligent thrillers could achieve worldwide success without sacrificing artistic ambition. Its reputation only grew over the decades, with many critics eventually calling it the greatest British film ever made. Fact 5. Its influence can still be seen in modern thrillers today. Generations of filmmakers have borrowed techniques first perfected in The Third Man. Tilted camera angles, morally ambiguous anti-heroes, atmospheric city locations, and climactic chases through labyrinthine environments all became staples of suspense cinema. Directors including Martin Scorsese, Steven Soderbergh, Christopher Nolan, and the Coen brothers have praised the film's visual storytelling. The mysterious entrance of Harry Lime, the Ferris wheel confrontation, and the final silent walk continue appearing in film schools as examples of cinematic economy. Rather than relying on spectacle, Carol Reed demonstrated that atmosphere, composition, and carefully timed reveals could create lasting suspense. Fact 4. The mysterious title hides the entire story's central question. For much of the film, audiences wonder who the third man actually is. Witnesses claim Harry Lime's body was carried away by 3 men after his apparent accident, yet official accounts insist only 2 were present. That single inconsistency drives Holly Martins deeper into Vienna's dangerous underworld. Every interview, every clue, and every contradiction circles back to the identity of the mysterious third figure. Graham Greene built the entire narrative around one deceptively simple question, proving that the strongest mysteries often begin with the smallest detail. By the time the truth emerges, viewers realize the title has been pointing toward the solution from the very beginning. Fact 3. Harry Lime became one of cinema's greatest villains through charm alone. Unlike many screen villains, Harry Lime rarely raises his voice or threatens anyone directly. He smiles, jokes, and speaks with effortless confidence. That charm makes his crimes even more horrifying. During the Ferris wheel conversation, he casually reduces human lives to tiny moving dots far below, revealing a world view entirely devoid of compassion. Welles understood that true menace often speaks softly. Harry never sees himself as evil. He believes intelligence simply allows him to profit where others hesitate. That disturbing combination of charisma and moral emptiness secured his place among the greatest villains in film history. Fact 2. The film transformed post-war uncertainty into unforgettable cinematic atmosphere. Everything in The Third Man serves its mood: the damaged streets, the echoing footsteps, the tilted buildings, the lonely zither melodies, the drifting sewer mist. Carol Reed combined every visual and musical element into a portrait of a city where trust has collapsed alongside its architecture. Post-war Vienna becomes a place where truth is always hidden just beyond the next shadow. Few thrillers have created such a complete sense of place. More than 70 years later, audiences still remember the atmosphere long after individual plot details fade. Fact 1. The Third Man proved noir could become timeless cinematic art. The cold open began with one simple mystery: who was the mysterious third man? By the final scene, that question has revealed something far larger than a murder investigation. Carol Reed, Graham Greene, Orson Welles, Joseph Cotten, and an extraordinary creative team crafted a thriller about friendship, betrayal, corruption, and the moral cost of survival in a broken world. Released in 1949, The Third Man became one of the defining achievements of film noir. Celebrated for its unforgettable photography, haunting music, and iconic performances. Its influence continues to shape suspense cinema because it understood that the greatest mysteries are never simply about discovering the truth. They are about discovering what that truth reveals about ourselves. And that's 20 facts about The Third Man, 1949. A mystery that begins with a funeral became one of the greatest thrillers ever filmed, proving that shadows can sometimes reveal more than the light. If you enjoyed this countdown, subscribe for a brand new documentary every week, and let us know which classic film we should explore next. Thanks for watching. A man steps off a train into a city still scarred by war. Vienna is divided between four occupying powers. Buildings lie in ruins. The black market thrives in the shadows. He arrives expecting to reunite with an old friend, only to discover that friend has just been buried. Yet before long, whispers begin circulating through the bombed-out streets. 3 men carried the body, but witnesses insist there was a mysterious third man. That simple question becomes the beginning of one of the greatest mysteries in cinema history. Released in 1949, The Third Man was directed by Carol Reed, written by Graham Greene, and starred Joseph Cotten, Alida Valli, Trevor Howard, and Orson Welles. Famous for its tilted camera angles, haunting zither music, and unforgettable chase through Vienna's sewers, it transformed post-war Europe into one of cinema's most atmospheric settings. More than 70 years later, it remains a masterpiece of suspense, visual storytelling, and moral ambiguity.